Hi, my name is Robert Hagans. I'm a filmmaker and I hope soon to be author. I'm doing this because I love Frederick and I love Wonder Book. I feel like sort of Frederick's adopted son, came here in my 20s and don't want to leave. But I love Wonder Book. I've always loved this store and I'm really thankful to them and Isles of Wonder for inviting me to be on this sort of program. Shout out to Clark, a friend of mine who works here. First pick, or for this pick, I wanted to do Chris Rock's top 5. I got my first job in the industry from Chris Rock. Apparently I have the same measurements as Bernie Mac, God rest him. And I ended up as an extra in a photo shoot, like an impromptu photo shoot where they're gonna put Bernie Mac's face over my face. And I got introduced to Chris Rock, who was the director of that film. They were just like, oh yeah, like you get introduced like to someone's dad at a party. Like I wasn't introduced to one of the funniest men on the planet. And he was my hero. And of his movies, this is my favorite. It's the most, I think, honest of all his films. And if I could make movies for the rest of my life that looked like a movie, it would be fine if they looked like this one. I would be very much okay with that. All right, I'm gonna cheat a little bit on this one. I'm picking Stephen King's Wizard and Glass, but I'm picking the entire Dark Tower. Stephen King was someone who I thought was kind of a joke until I read one of his books. And folks had, if you're into Stephen King, you obviously hear about the Dark Tower. And people would describe it as Lord of the Rings, his Lord of the Rings. And that kept me from reading it for a long time, but I read all of the books around the Dark Tower. So one day I just decided to go all the way through it. And I am the biggest tower nerd. Well, probably not the biggest, but I'm a complete tower nerd now, and I love everything about them. And this one in particular, it's like a Louis L'Amour Western with this love story thrown in, but at the same time, it's also a take on the Wizard of Oz. If that sounds weird, it is. It's completely untenable. There's no other author on the face of the planet who can make Louis L'Amour and the Wizard of Oz work on the page except for one man. One man. Sue Grafton, what can you say about one of the world's greatest mystery writers? She's amazing, and A for Alibi, which is the first in her Alphabet series with Kinsey Millhone, she's like half Private Eyes / Doomsday Prepper. It's really odd. It's a great series. They were very formative when I was growing up, when I was starting to get into like adult books. As I sort of graduated from like R.L. Stine, Sue Grafton was one of the books that I picked up, and I think I picked it up like way down in the alphabet, but I eventually went and got back, and these books are fantastic. So she would be definitely on my list, and I don't think that she gets enough love. All right, so I am writing like my own mystery, and of course I needed inspiration. So I went straight to my favorite author, Stephen King, for Mr. Mercedes. Mr. Mercedes is, the thing that I love about it is that it's Stephen King, but in a completely different way than you see him. Like there's a certain kind of Stephen King that I think everyone knows. We all know The Mist Stephen King, we all know The Shining Stephen King, but this is so perfect. And when I think about mysteries like the kind that I'm writing, I absolutely I worship at the altar of this book, how good it is. Of course, he does cheat a little bit, because I think most whodunits are all about like finding who the killer is. Steve tells you who the killer is right up front. And then it becomes less of a whodunit and how are you going to catch him? It's a little bit of cheating, but Steve gets away with it. My favorite movie of all time. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I'm a huge David Fincher fan. Could not be more of a David Fincher fan. There are certain directors where they get a movie out, they're just like, David Fincher doing Daniel Craig reading the alphabet. I'm like, sign me up. They're gonna get my money. And David Fincher is that director. In this movie, despite the fact that I think Fight Club is the Citizen Kane of my generation, this is still my favorite movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. The characters work, the directing works, the pacing works. Everything about this movie is absolutely flawless. Wouldn't change a thing about it. Have nothing but good things to say. Anyway, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, you guys should really see it. So this is Robert Hagans. Thanks again to Wonder Book for letting me be a part of Isles of Wonder. You can find me more on YouTube. Also, I do How to Make a Movie for $1,000, but I also am hopefully going to be moving into authorship as I write my first mystery. I've always wanted to put together a mystery as something that I've never attempted before. Shout out to my wife and producer, Misha. I'm sorry that I didn't choose Sin City, which is our favorite movie, is the movie that we saw on our first date. It should have been a part of the list, but it gets sort of honorable mention here. And I'm not paying for any of these.